מתכסה ברחמים, מוכן וסולח, מביט ויודע, ירפא ליבי, אל מי אני מתגעגע, כמו ים שנוחו, רק תגיד לי מי יחבק אותי, והבטיח שאני לא אכנע בסוף. מי היה עובר מי ממית ומחיה,
What we just did.
מצמיח כנפיים, ירפא ליבי, אל מי אני מתגעגע, כמו ים שנוחו, רק תגיד לי מי יחבק אותי, והבטיח שאני לא אכנע בסוף, שאני לא אכנע בסוף. אל מי אני מתגעגע, כמו ים שנוחו, רק תגיד לי מי יחבק אותי, והבטיח שאני לא אכנע בסוף, שאני לא אכנע בסוף. מי יודע כל כאב, מי רופא לי שבורי לב, זה אור החושך, עושה שלום ומלחמה, מי יושב על כיסא דין, מתכסה ברחמים, מוכן וסולח, מביט ויודע, ירפא ליבי, אל מי אני מתגעגע, כמו
There we go. Shalom, shalom. Hopefully you guys were hearing that song. That would really be sad if I was playing this beautiful song and you guys couldn't hear it. Were you? Was it, or it was just like dead air time?
No, I can hear the song. It was good.
Awesome. My friend Marita sent that to me on Facebook today. She actually sent the video of the gentleman who was singing it, and he did it in English, and then this was his Hebrew version. And I was so moved by it. I mean, both of them were just so phenomenal. And I'm like, oh, that is such an amazing frequency for us to be able to start our discussion today. Just this beautiful language of light love that touches us at the heart level because of the frequency that's involved. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So as everybody's beginning to come in, I'm happy. Kathleen, it's good to see you. I mean, I don't see you, but I'm very happy that you're here, my friend. And of
Hi,
course,
honey. I was there this morning too on Facebook, so
Oh,
it'll be a good filling day.
you're spending like all day with us. Now it's just me, and so far we got the girls, but we got Zarin joining us, and I don't know
Are you gonna record that, because I missed a little bit of it?
of what this morning. Oh, it's on there.
It's so
it's
good.
on.
It
Yeah,
is. It'll be on there for a while. Okay, good.
Yeah, it is forever on our YouTube channel unless I delete it. It's also on Facebook. So if you want to, there was a lot shared this morning. There was
a lot.
Oh my gosh. Before we started, Ken says this. He's like, hey, Zarin. There's my amazing friend. I didn't get to talk to Zarin last night, but Zarin and Ken were chatting for a while. I was doing my own thing, and so they had a wonderful conversation last night. It's good to have you here. So this morning before we went on, Ken's like, this is going to be really meaty today. This is going to be really heavy. And we didn't even get to the word Torah. Really? We shared a little bit, but it was all this foundational pieces for us. Yeah. To be able to understand the power of gratitude. And that is one of the key factors of this book. With heart-brain coherence, heart math, I think it's heartmath.org, talking about how the brain and the mind and the heart get coherent with one another, comes from the place of gratitude of the heart and feeling it. I was putting heart and feeling together, and that was not a good combination there. But putting the feeling within the heart of actually feeling gratitude brings the coherence. And that's why it was so important to be able to share this gratitude aspect and lay the foundation for it, because of what we want to go into next week with the meditation and being able to bring everybody together. So I'm super excited. I'm hoping more people are joined, but if they don't, this is just going to, well, look at that. I just said that. And it looks like our friend Brett is coming in, Brett Erickson. If there's people that are watching on YouTube, that's great, because they're going to get a lot out of this. But today I'm really hoping to hear from you guys. I don't want to be the one that is, I'll help steer it, but I want to hear from you guys, because if you have read this first chapter, at least the pages 3 to 24, your mind, if it's anything like mine, was probably absolutely blown. Did you guys, who all has gone through those pages? Just so I know. Hey, Brett.
Most of it.
Okay, so you
completely. Yeah.
Okay, and Zarin,
Yes,
did you?
Yeah, I said I've lived it. I've experienced it.
Okay, and Brett, you've gone through it. Okay, Kathleen, were you able to go through it? Do you have the book?
Page 19. I got up to page 19.
Well, that's right. There was some fantastic stuff in there, and that's all right, because I'm going to share some highlights wherever you guys didn't, wherever you guys have stopped. I'm going to share some highlights from the rest of those pages. It is so deeply profound, this chapter, that I knew we had to break it up in pieces. Ashley, were you able to get through some of it too?
Yes, I was. And actually, I had the audio version first. So I've been like listening to it as I'm going to bed at night, and then got to the reading. I just picked up a copy yesterday. So it's taking some chewing, and each chewing is like a new level of revelation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm excited to be able to share this and start this with you guys. So what I feel like we're going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to say, okay, hey, we're on page 3. And then I'll ask you guys on page 3, what are some of the things that you found that were so phenomenal on that page, and we can discuss it. And we're just going to keep marching through the pages, just so that if people haven't read it yet, they can get a really big, strong flavor of the arguments that are being laid forward here in the science that is behind the demystifying of the mystic path of manifestation. And so I woke up this morning and I was so excited. I was like bouncing around in the house, just going, yes, I can't wait to have this discussion. And, I'm a little like a champagne bottle that has been shook up, and I'm not everybody's flavor, but I get very excited when I can dot connect and when I can see that there's practical applications for us to take the sacred languages and not only have just this inward journey of inward formation, but how we can manifest it externally. And that's what I really saw in this first chapter. Blew my mind. So it looks like our friend Lynn is joining us too, and I know she's read it. I'm sure she'll have plenty to share with us because her mind has been blown about this book as well. So let's look at page 3. Do you have anything that you've highlighted in page 3 that you wanted to share that stood out? I've got a couple things that were highlighted, but I kind of want to hear from you of anything in this first page of this introduction of the quantum you, because that's really what we're talking about. Is we're blowing ourselves out of the box of like Newtonian designs and Descartes and all of these things into a science that really brings forth spirituality tied intimately together. So was there anything that jumped off that page at you guys? I'm leaving it open because I really want you guys to talk to. I'm giving us an opportunity. It's not just me sharing. I want to hear from you guys. It's like interact.
I got something.
What was that, Brett?
Let's face it, none of us are perfect. That's what it says.
I know.
But on the other hand, it also says, fast forward to our current understanding, that we're part of a vast invisible field of energy which contains all possible realities and responds to our thoughts and our feelings.
That's right. So like marinating just on that. Part of a vast invisible field of energy which contains all possible realities that responds to our thoughts and feelings. And I highlighted that exact same thing, Brett, because this is a completely different mind shift for us. This is, if I can add to what you were saying, this is sovereignty. This is truly sovereignty. Because as a sovereign, we are creating our reality, and we are therefore being responsible for what we are creating through the power that has been given to us as creators. And so, connecting to many things that my husband has shared and that we've looked at, even the phrase Melchizedek, right? The kings and queens of right doing. Melchizedek's kings and queens of righteousness in right doing know that which we create, that we've put forth that intention to make it happen. And so I don't want to get hung up on each page too long, but that was phenomenal. And also how we've been steered. I'll ask if anybody else, because I want to make this first point. In the very first paragraph, it outlines and it talks about that the early physicists, and that much of that is directed, like our education system. A lot of us are around, we've got a smattering of age groups here because I'm in the latter 40s group. Regina's in her 50s, Zaren's in his 30s, and I don't know how Ashley is. And I believe Kathleen, you're in your 60s, right?
Turning 37 tomorrow.
Okay, so you're in your late 30s. Kathleen, you're in your 60s, correct?
I'm 70. I just turned 70.
Well, happy belated birthday. Brett, roughly where are you at?
Jubilee.
Okay, so you got the big 50. And Lynn?
Do we really need to confess? No, I'm going to be 60. I'm going to be 69 in November. So.
Oh my goodness, you definitely don't look like it, my beautiful friend.
Well, you are so sweet.
I would have never guessed that.
I'm 51, by the way. I just want to stay on Jubilee forever.
That's all right. It's a year of Jubilee. It's great because everything is full of restoration for you when you cross over that. I'm at 48. So we've got all these age groups that were in a smattering, but a lot of us, we were raised in our education system with this earlier physics, right? And it's only been recently that we've gotten and brought some of this quantum physics into our life. And some of us have had difficulty trying to cross over and get our minds to it because of what we were educated in, right? Our foundations. So before, they divided the world into matter and thought, and later matter and energy. So they were keeping them. I love this. Mind matter duality shaped our early world view that reality was essentially predetermined and that we could do little to change things through our actions. So here we've been bumbling along thinking that we couldn't affect any of it. It was just unfolding and we were going to have to live it, when this new science in the quantum field is showing us the exact opposite of it. I don't know about you guys, but I am so super excited about this because, like I was saying at the end of what we were talking about earlier this morning with Ken and I have felt very helpless. And, you know, if you guys want to agree or disagree, please, we're having a discussion here. There's no right or wrong answers. For me personally, I have felt helpless for most of my life. I felt helpless in that I would see things that would be happening in my outside world. And I felt that I had no control over them. I had no say over them. I had no control over them. And that these things that were manifesting outward, I just had to ride the wave with it, come what may. And I don't know about you guys, but even with 2019, 2020, although some of you have had this information prior, I'm very new to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work because I wasn't ready for it. I'm ready for it now, but I wasn't ready for it then. And what this has done, it's given me hope. Like, it is full restoration hope. I saw it in the language, but to actually see that there's a practical model to make this happen, to change our reality, and there's science behind it, that we're not hopeless or helpless. I don't know about you guys, but that is like major cause to celebrate for me. I'm thinking champagne everywhere. Woo! We get to change this.
Well, I find that very interesting. And here I wasn't going to talk today.
Please do.
I don't want to take too much time, but you know, I have done a lot of these last 2 weeks, a lot of in-depth thinking and meditating exactly where this book was when I picked it up, when you offered it. And it's just the reason why it's resonating. I finally came to the conclusion, or still learning conclusions, is the journey that I've been on all my life. It dawned on me in the quietness that this is in us. And it is, I know we've talked about the remembering, and you kind of helped me through that. And when something is introduced to you and you allow that and step into that and not be fearful of it, then it becomes what is already in you is allowed to come out. And, you know, I know we can say, you know, the Holy Spirit, the spirit in us, the innateness in us, it all connected with me in such a way that, you know, the words that just keep always ringing true, you know, be ye perfect. I know Brett brought that up, but I always believed that to be true. I knew it to be true. And now I almost feel like it's a continuous growing into it that, you know, in the scientific world and what's being proven and has been proven is just coming into me now because I'm ready for it, that these dots or threads or whatever are beginning to come alive, and you become alive and your spirit becomes alive, and people see it and see the change in you, because now you can put that connection into life, real life, and you have something to say that is spirit and is true. I truly believe it because it's in me. And now it's just, wow. It goes beyond, and I'll stop there, but yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think that, you know, we are attracted to it for that very reason that you said. We get these even through Christianity, we get these half truths with a whole lot of gaps that makes us not victorious in it. It's
right.
Like now I can look at Christianity and see those movements of the spirit moving and things happening and manifesting, which is a lot like Joe Dispenza's retreats.
Yes.
Where they're manifesting and they're experiencing the same things. And you just look at that and you can see now a fuller picture and what's missing in it, and why some of them were even successful in it. But most weren't. Most were helpless. Like Carrie said, we didn't have the sovereignty to play it out, to live it out. So it's really awesome to see that fuller picture and can see where it's lacking, the gaps, and then fill in the gaps so that you can live it out. So, yeah.
I love that the fact that we have a doing. We have a doing that's available to us so that we are not victims. Hey,
Yes.
Lemoyne.
Yes.
Susan, welcome. I saw you on there. You might have zipped off, but at some point I saw you on there. You might have jumped off, but I was glad to see you for the moment you were there. So let's move on to the next page, because I really want to get through page 24 if we can, as I don't want to take this to be like a 6-month process for us to get through, because I really want to get to the place where we can activate together. That's what I'm really excited about, is being able to do this as a group, in togetherness and oneness unity. I thought it was interesting at the top of page 4. Well, actually, did you guys, in what he was sharing at the beginning, the top paragraph about the review of the day, did you guys get anything out of those first 2 paragraphs off that page about a parent lashing out to their child and what the review looks like at the end of the day? Did you guys get anything from that of what the takeaway was?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I think that when I was in college, I was valedictorian many years ago, and I spoke about how there are voices out there that tell us, we're too fat, too this and that, but we can accomplish a lot. And that was the basis of what I talked about. But you know what? I lived my life like that. I mean, I still fought the outer circumstances, but I didn't do the inward work as well as I could have. And I always put myself down. And at the end of the day, if I'd done anything wrong, and I think this is my personality and the Christian thing I was under, I just beat myself up like I was a failure and I better work really hard. But this is about perspective. This is about hope. This is about our belief system. And so I love reading this. And I've only discovered this. I've watched Joe Dispenza on YouTube and read these books. I always kind of figured, I'm embarrassed to say it, that it was too late for me or everybody else got it and I wouldn't. But finding the Hebrew, the languages, it came together. It's a marriage. And I'm grateful for that.
That's so awesome, Kathleen. Thank you for sharing that. You'll see it as we go. I'm going to bring some Hebrew words into this as we go, and different letters as this information rolls out, so that we can see how it does directly connect to the languages and what the languages are trying to convey, that now science is being able to show us. It's truly incredible. The kind of the perspective I got in that first paragraph. And please, again, if you guys have something to say, you can either raise your hand or just share it. I don't want this to be just about me. This is us coming together with our collective thoughts on this, what the information is being shared. Because I know if it's stretching me, it's stretching you guys. Because this is breaking old paradigms, from indoctrination and things that we've settled for less, and we didn't realize it because of our ignorance. Ignorance is just not knowing something. And now we're into that place of knowing and truly having power, not just knowledge, but activation, which then relates to power in changing our reality. What I was most fascinated was how he was beginning to talk about how all of these things exist simultaneously. So at the end of the day, you got your review, you yelled at your child, and you're either envisioning either an angelic self whose patience was stretched like an innocent victim on the rack, or a hideous ogre laying to waste a child's self-esteem by how you reacted to the situation in the review. And then it says, which of those images are real? The answer to that is all of them are real. And so we have to stop and okay, so what is he saying here? Not just the extremes of these two things that it talks about, but the infinite spectrum of images ranging from positive to negative exist simultaneously. That is potentiality. That's why I'm excited, because Ken and I talk about potential all the time. And so when I began seeing this, I'm like, oh my gosh, here we're talking about potentiality in the quantum realm. All of these things exist simultaneously, and all of them are real. Is that hard for you guys to wrap your minds around, or is it just me?
I think that example actually made it easier to understand that potentiality, because like when you turn back to the page 3, when he talks about, the field of energy contains all possible realities, that sounds really far removed. When he gets granular about it and gives an example of a parent who, goes to bed, and in the moment they're feeling like they're righteous in their judgment of the situation, how they're, raising up their kids, but then at night they're like, was I too hard? Was I this? Was I that? And on the flip side, the kid may be in their bed saying, I really should have listened to mom or dad, or they could be thinking they're such the ogre. And when you think about it in that perspective, it's like, yeah, all of those possibilities could exist in that one. And we get so locked into, black and white, this is the way it happened. And our perception is one of a million that could occur at the same time of the same circumstances.
Right. It's all based in choice.
And the potential of healing past, that was given to me before, but it just never really, I could never see it. I didn't have the scientific mind to really understand that, even though I knew about quantum and all of this. But this really made it, okay, you can put this to work now, and you can do it, because I'm going through a healing process that's huge. And I am foreseeing the totality of my perfectness in being able to walk and run and do those things that I used to do, not but 2 weeks ago. And yet day by day, the more I say I'm healed, I believe it, and have had to go back and say, even that child never even had that potential to go through this, that, for whatever causes, in that fear factor that I grew up as a child in, didn't need to exist, but to be able to say, I love you back then and you did it right and it's okay. And now that allows me and my, I can see the DNA changing in me. I can see, by meditating on that, the blood flowing and then actually seeing that the past doesn't even, you can change that. I can see it now. And this really helped me I don't know if that makes sense. It really is beyond my words coming out of my, my mouth sometimes, but I do feel it in my heart. And I hope you can feel that as well through the frequency, what I'm feeling and experiencing in the flesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what you said just reminded me, not to get ahead of us, but later on when he talks about the praying in reverse for people's healing, it made me think about those potentialities, how even our healing that we do now as adults can go back and heal that child that wasn't healed in the moment years prior.
Exactly.
Yeah, you said it so much more beautifully. Thank you. And I thank you for restructuring my words in a way that is a little bit more understandable.
No, I'm actually glad you said it, because I hadn't put that together in my head until I heard you say that. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes out later. I'm hoping when we go through the process, like you're talking about, Carrie.
Oh, we will. We definitely will. We're going to give time for that as we go from page to page, because we've got life examples that all of us are living, and being able to make it personal. I mean, that's one of the things that Ken and I have seen, that everything needs to be made personal. This isn't about an external, out here. Everything has to be brought near and dear to us at the heart level in order for things to change. So we don't want to push ourselves away from it. We want to draw near to it and realize that this is intimately us. This is our creator ability. Yeah, Brett, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, how about if all time collapses to the now? And when we live in the now and create our now experience, or maybe our summer or whatever our goal is through the vision and in an emotional state, as we see our future in the now moment, actually heals the past, because it collapses all time to the actual present time. And so can that actually heal the past? Seriously heal. That's when the Hebrew, I think you might know this is something about do forgiveness. And I'm in a church we do all this stuff where people actually, and I go, gosh, in my upbringing, this could be charismatic witchcraft, I thought. They would call it and say, okay, my son, I want him to have a good life and be happy and enjoy and play the sports and do the things they want, but they're having a terrible time right now. So they've had moms and dads sit back and just going, oh, we're so happy and grateful that our son loves life. We just see him, playing the sport that he wants or whatever it may, now we know the Spirit actually manifests perfectly in all things of the desires of everyone's heart. But that's why it's so good to communicate, to say, what do you want? And why, and then detail it out. And it's just like, oh.
And we're definitely going to get to that. Yeah, because that's the examples, all the stuff in the back of the book. So,
Okay.
What we're talking about right here is the science behind it, because there's some people out there like me. I'm one of those people. I want to know why. Right. I don't want you to tell me to do something, because if I can't connect to the why, then I can't get my heart involved. And that's something that I've always understood about me, not understanding the science, right? But something I knew innately about myself, that unless my heart connected to it, I was not going to do it. And so that's why I want to talk about these first and really go into detail about some of the things, not jump too far ahead, but go detailed as we're going, so that we can establish the why. Because if people are going to listen to this, I want them to leave with some nuggets as to why we're going through the book. Why is it connected to the sacred languages, and how are we changing our reality so that the why can be answered? And that's what I believe this first chapter is so amazing, and why I was so excited about it, is being able to see that. So a little bit further on page 3, he talks about that, our past efforts is most likely the reason why you were drawn to this book, is that your past efforts, and I totally related to this, your past efforts to make any lasting change in your life, physical, emotional, or spiritual, have fallen short of the ideal of yourself that you imagined, right? I totally understand that, for me personally, on my journey.
I'll do.
And why those efforts failed has more to do with your beliefs about why your life is the way it is than with anything else, including a perceived, here's the key, perceived lack of will, time, courage, or imagination. Perceived lack. I circled that word as I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. So in order to change, we have to come to a new understanding of the self and the world, so that we can embrace new knowledge and have new experiences. And this one really got me. And so if you guys want to add some more, I'm going to leave you guys to talk about each page. And then if there's something I want to bring, I will go ahead and do it. But this one thing, your shortfalls can be traced to their root. Again, connecting Hebrew. When we look at the sacred writings, everything goes to the root of the word. So when Joe Dispenza is saying all shortfalls can be traced to the root, because at the root of the element is where the potentiality lies in order to create. So unless you get to a root of an issue or the root of the word, you're not going to be able to manifest it forward. So if you followed us along in our teachings and you hear us talk about the root, that is why it's so important. And you can't just take the Hebrew Aramaic words right at their surface level. You got to go deep. This whole thing is about digging deep within us, because the sacred languages dig deep within us as well. It's a mirror. So the root is one major oversight. This is so good. You haven't committed yourself to living by the truth that your thoughts have consequences so great that they create your reality. That is such a Selah moment right there. I don't know. What are your guys feeling on that?
I think thoughts are okay, but what I'm studying is, I thought it was our subconscious, the things that we impressed on our subconscious basically is the default of our life. 95%
and that's what we get into.
Time.
Yes, that's what this book is getting into. But this moment, this little phrase right here is for us to stop, so that we understand that even why the Bible says to take every thought captive. Because there's consequences to your thought, to the power of our mind. As a man thinks, so he is. As a man thinks, so he creates. So the consequences can be good, bad, or indifferent, right? So consequences isn't just a negative word. It means that something is going to happen based upon your thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent.
Carrie?
Yeah.
Is it going to ever, do you think, tell us how to do that? Because this morning I woke up And I was having a thought that I didn't want to think about someone. So I said, oh, I don't want to think that. And I pushed it out of my mind. And a lot of times I'll do, I don't know, Ho'oponopono or something like that, something positive, and think about how I love the person and the good things. But I mean, the fact that the thought even came bothers me. The first thought, is that my shadow, or is that, did that have a consequence that it's still inside of me and I'm creating from the first thought?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question.
May I?
Yeah, sure.
Something that I've learned about thoughts in our physical reality, our thoughts, our actions, everything that we react to coming at us is all based on habitual programming. So that thought is just a program coming back up to the surface. And if you don't address it and you let it pass through without stopping it and saying, no, this is my overriding pattern, and this is going to be the thought from now on, then it's going to keep repeating itself. So what I chose to do in practical terms, when I had a thought come up, like you'll have a conversation in your head surrounding someone, just keeps repeating over and over again, or carries on, you just stop and say, no, that's not me. And you replace it with something. And I replaced mine with, I am healthy, wealthy, and wise. It didn't matter what the conversation, what the negative thought was. I replaced it with what I wanted to be. And that's how I approach that. And I could go on and on about that subject. It's definitely something that's I clicked with when I realized how powerful my thoughts were. Totally changed my mind, my world. And I would have never met Ken and Carrie if I didn't do that. The only reason I'm here today. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that you're here, Zarin. I've had a great relationship with you and Vanessa and your beautiful children. So I'm grateful that we were all brought together. I'm truly grateful because you guys have enriched our lives greatly. This family.
Same here.
Addressing that too, to add to that, my struggle and the big shift that I've had to make is not looking at the thoughts that come as necessarily good or bad, but as the contrast of seeing two different perspectives and then bringing them together so that they're neutralized. And so if you're always looking at that's a bad thought, that's a bad thought, you tend to beat yourself up about it. But it's actually a tool. It's helpful. It comes, you see it, you see the contrast, you're able to compress it, or that's the goal, is to compress it down to where it's neutralized, and then you can move forward in it and not feel shame, guilt, and all those things that come with bad and good and all that stuff that we deal with, because we're living in duality. I mean, this is a world of duality.
So is this world the duality to teach us to be like God, who we always were? So it's a catalyst to basically say, you get a thought and say it's something, you're like, God, why does that person keep coming in my mind? And it's like a compare, and it says in the Bible, fools only are, that fools would be like the unknowledged or whatever, not some fool, whatever, but to measure themselves against themselves or measure themselves with another. So couldn't I measure myself with God every time and say, no, like Zarin said, okay, that is a catalyst to bring me to a point of, oh, I am so grateful. I am a good person too. Like if somebody I've seen before, I'm like, why does that person keep coming in and I compare myself and I'm thinking that really sucks in a way, because I'm like, why is that place that it's like replacing me. It's like replacing my being. I'm like, how do I do that? Is it for me? Can it be for me? Now I know, like Zarin said, it's just a programming. Somewhere we got something that our subconscious is trying to save us from.
Well,
It's
the
always trying to-
subconscious, yeah, the book is going to address that, and you're going to see
Okay.
why we got programmed, and we're going to get into that. We're not there yet, but we are going to get
Okay,
into
good.
that about the subconscious programming and why these things happen, because there's always a mirror response as well. And so a lot of that
Okay.
external world is mirroring back that which is on the inside of us that we need to address, which is from the subconscious level. That is a program that is running in the background that is then causing us to manifest certain things, and why certain people keep coming in our lives and certain things keep manifesting is because we need to deal with the subconscious programming and reprogram and rewire it, hence breaking the habit of being you. So when we get into this a little bit further, so the thoughts have consequences so great that they create our reality. This is what we are talking about. We are talking about creating our reality. Okay, so I want to make sure we keep bringing that back. The reality in which we experience in our outside world is that which is created by our thoughts, especially when they're connected to an emotion. Because you can look at things objectively and just look at them as objective. It's information that you do not put an emotion to, and it becomes neutral. It is neutralized. It is just information. As soon as we attach an emotion to it, then it affects our reality. Okay, that's what this book is talking about. The heart and the brain and the mind work together to create our reality. So when anything comes to us from our outside world, it is just information that is objective. The difference between us being in the inversion of good and evil, we judge it. When you're not in the version that we are in, the inverted version, when there is no duality, it just becomes information that does not have emotional attachment to it. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil forced us to judge the information that was coming in, that then would create a strong emotion so we could experience duality in the polarities. Does that make sense? So when you get out of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because we've learned it, because we created this in the beginning. The Elohim were divided into light and dark. I've shared that many times before. And so I'm bringing all this into the conscious awareness of what we are doing in our subconscious programming to see the reality outward of us manifesting duality, bipolarism.
Well, and I think, bring it back, Carrie, to your question was, bringing in the Aramaic and what you've been teaching and how we've come in to understand you and how that even entered into our life and how you entered back into my life. It's a processing, and it's only when your spirit is driven to carry on, no matter what the outside circumstances is and the emotion of the attachment of other people in your life that are still working on emotion, but there's something deeper within you that's calling you for a deeper purpose, perhaps. And I see this in the big picture that that the Hebrew and the Aramaic and what you have showed has allowed to see that evil and good again, to be able to see it in the field of the frequency, but yet it's written and it was created for a purpose and a time for now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, for myself, it is for now. And that's why I don't beat myself up anymore about the past. Right. And the things that were already taught me that I judged all through my life.
Right.
Because that's what was taught me. That was,
right.
But to be able to stand, I think it was like Regina said, in the center point, or maybe it was Brett, to look at both and to have no emotion about it, but only for the good, to pick the things that are good, true, lovely, just, right. These are the things in the fruit that they're going to see us by. All of a sudden that came alive. But it wasn't until I was able to look at the evil and say, well, really, it wasn't intended. It was the choice from the very beginning that everybody was given.
Well, and it was based on
whoever
experience.
was from the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was based on experience.
Uh-oh.
So, and I'm going to get us back on track here because we got a lot of pages to cover. But the Elohim in dividing in light and dark was
Did I
for the
lose
sake
you?
of experience. I'm on. I'm good.
Hello?
I'm still here. Can you guys hear me? Lynn can't hear me. Can you guys hear me? All right. I don't know what's going on, Lynn, but we're here. She's probably going to come back on. But in our experience of the dual system, we created it for us to experience both good and evil. That's what it is. I mean, you take your creator power and you take the power to create evil. You take your power to create good, because what we were looking for was we were looking for unconditional love. What were these two paths? How do you know what the opposite is unless somebody else presents the opposite to you? So you think about it, even the people that are holding the negative pole in duality were and are benevolent beings that chose a polarity opposite for the sake of your experience in the positive side of it. That's when we no longer judge the negative polarity. Does that make sense? Because they're benevolent beings that chose to come in as creators to create in a system of duality, in experiencing that so that we could experience what duality looks like. Somebody had to choose that position as a creator. So the way you neutralize it through forgiveness is that you understand that everything is experience and we stop judging. Because in the dual system, that's when we attach emotion to it. And then that is what we're presenting out there, because we attached an emotion to the information coming in. And, you know, whatever that is, rage, anger, you know, all of this stuff. And I'm not saying that these things aren't existing. We just made it happen. We've just created it and we're living in it. So how do we change it? That's what this is talking about, because we're manifesting the reality by that which is in us. So I think we are all to blame for what we're seeing. And it's time as a sovereign to take responsibility and make a stand and change it.
Right.
To your point about the emotions that we attribute to things, on the flip side of it working to our negative in terms of we don't want to attribute emotions to things that we don't want to give power to, that resonates with me with that line that you traced off of page 4 about you haven't committed yourself to living by the truth. I think that's the lack of the emotion. We picture ourselves a certain way, but we haven't believed ourselves to be that way. We haven't lived as if we embody that truth. So it's really like a half-hearted commitment to the ideal version of ourselves that we want.
And that's lack of trust.
Mm-hmm.
In here, we don't trust ourselves.
Right.
We don't trust ourselves. And that's because we've been cut off from the fullness of our heart. If our hearts were fully wide, expanded, and opened, and they didn't have all the shame and the hurt and the anger and the fear, and because of the separation of what we went through by coming into this reality and inverting and cutting ourselves off from Creator and then having to find ourselves, we wouldn't have the shame and the guilt and the lack of trust. It's when we get into that oneness and we realize, oh, you know, everything's expanded. It's like, oh, I can trust my heart. That's why that one scripture, the heart is deceitfully wicked, that was like one of the first ones that I broke down, that Regina and I broke down and we talked about a long time ago on our channel about the big lie. It said the heart is melancholy. That's not wicked. That's melancholy. That is completely different. Why is it melancholy? Because we haven't connected to it fully. We haven't connected to Source Creator yet. And that is why our emotions, if we keep living in that wounded and lack of trust, what are we projecting outwardly? So
why did we cut ourselves off from Source, and why did God cut himself off from himself?
Well, that would be for the sake of experience, and that is a conversation for another day.
All right, boy.
Okay, because that's like another hour conversation that Ken and I have addressed. Yeah, it's Ken and I have addressed that in many other videos on our YouTube channel, because I want to kind of keep it in the spectrum of this. It's a good question, Brett, but there's a ton of videos that address it through the language why we did it. So what we're talking about here is about creating our reality. And again, it's not so much for us to try to get the answers of why something happened, because that's all past events. We're talking about what we can do in our now, right now, because the past has already happened. That's already happened. And quantumly, we can shift it. And we're going to get to those pages where we talked about it. But listen, we're going to move on to page 5 now. We got a long ways to march through, guys. We focus our attention on what we want instead of continually obsessing about our problems. So that was focusing on what we want instead of our own problems is going to change the intent of the outcome of that which we create. So if we're always focusing on our problems, what are we going to create more of? The same problems. Firsthand, I'm talking pointing my fingers back, lack of money. That has been a habitual thing. And this has been one of those reads that have been deeply piercing to me, because that which I am constantly focusing on, that which is an issue of a problem that I've had to deal with, I'm creating more of it because that's what I'm focusing on. And I'll be transparent and I'll admit that. I've admitted that before. That is one of my deepest things. And I'm realizing that I can change that. I don't have to keep living this hamster wheel because of the subconscious programmings that are running in the background that are making me stay in habits.
You help me feel content, and I'll help you with the money side.
Well, we're going to do it together, because this book is going to show us how we can create all of this for us in working together in oneness to be able to have a heavenly earth manifest, because we are in the direct creator role and we're making it happen individually, micro in a micro sense to the macro sense. That's what this is all about. So let's, as we march on, let's look at chapter or page 5 here. To change your life, change your beliefs about the nature of reality. What did you guys see on this page that was really striking you? I've got a couple things on here that really hit me. Anything that you highlighted? Because if you don't, I'll share, but I'm giving you guys the opportunity if there was anything on page 5 that really stood out at you.
My big underline was if you really knew the principle was true, would you ever miss a day in intentionally creating your desired destiny? And I think, you know, I stumbled upon Dispenza way back when he did What the Bleep Do You Know? But so I've had these thoughts in the back of my mind, but reading that brought it forward. Like, how much am I actively putting that into practice? Like, even if I've failed at my attempts during the day, going at the end of the day and reviewing it, what do I want to do different tomorrow, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh, well, why did this happen? Which was the other thing I underlined, of overhaul your thinking about why things happen in order to produce desired outcomes. So I think those two were the pieces that I took away that I really need to connect with, is just that intentionality about things. Like, I know that I can create my own reality, but am I actually like putting it into practice, or just thinking about it after the fact?
Well, how easy it is to get into our old patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what the subconscious does. It slips in and we run into these patterns and we just keep doing it over and over again. So I get it. That I underline that same thing, by the way. I was like, oh, that's so good. Both of those things. I'm like, oh, those are great takeaways. That again, we are more powerful than we really even ever knew. And that's why I'm so grateful for this work. Because we're not victims. We no longer have to play that role anymore. And we don't have to play the hero, and we don't have to do any of those. We don't have to play roles anymore. We can divorce ourselves from all of that. Get us out of those narratives on the external world, go internal, feel from our heart, and create from that place of purity and innocence. And I don't have to play a role for anybody. You don't have to play a role for anybody. We just need to be in that place of being. And it's a completely shift. It's a huge shift.
I think that puts us in a scary place right here as we're beginning to really embody that, though, because like you talk about so many times about too much is given, much is expected. And when you do finally embrace that belief, it's like, shoot, I'm responsible for all this stuff that's going south. Like, there's a part that wants to disconnect. Like, no, there's things outside of my control that are just going to happen to me. But this places a lot more responsibility on us personally for what's going on.
Hence sovereignty. If we look at the phrase Melchizedek, and if we're embracing that, then we have to be those that are responsible for our words, actions, and our deeds, because they do affect reality. And yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Ashley, because down on the bottom, the very bottom paragraph, I wrote a little note and I said, ooh, trigger paragraph. Because that was my exact thought. And then I wrote fear, ego, excitement, spirit running simultaneously in the last paragraph of this book. This chapter, okay, so if I can read this so you can get this, and we'll move to the next page, but this is totally the embodiment of both Ashley and I. And if you guys were thinking the same thing, but she and I both, it hit us hard here. This chapter just might test your willingness to abandon ideas that you have had that have, in a sense, been programmed. So Zarin, like you were talking about subconscious, and you, Eric, or Brett, that have been programmed into you for many years on a conscious and subconscious level. Once you gain a new conception of the fundamental forces and elements that constitute reality, it won't fit into the old perception in which the linear and orderly rule the day. Be prepared to experience some fundamental shifts in your understanding. So that fear of taking responsibility for what we are doing, and understanding that we are literally going to be recreating and restructuring ourselves from the inside out, so that which we see is going to be a completely new being. And are we ready for that? Because we have to ask ourselves that. I ask myself that every day. When you look in the mirror, are you ready to be a new being? Or are you wanting to stay in the comfortable side of being the old you? Because those old patterns, they're habits. We just run into them. How many of us have the same routine every morning when we get up? Have you ever thought about that? What do you do first thing in the morning? You get up, go to the restroom, you go make your coffee or your tea, you sit down, you get on Facebook, or you read the paper, you turn on the news. How many day after day after day do we do the same exact thing? Those are habits of subconscious programming that runs us. And that's why we're breaking the habit of being in these subconscious routines that are keeping us and holding us captive. And we keep recreating the same thing over and over again. Are you guys ready to change? I'm asking, I am. Are you guys ready to not be you anymore and to be a new creation? Have you even asked yourself that yet?
The excited part says yes. The terrified part says maybe not quite yet.
Agreed.
Here's your opportunity. Change the vernacular of fear as something to be against or resist, and change it into the acronym feeling excited and ready.
Oh,
that's good. I like that.
I love that, Zarin. Feeling excited and ready versus false evidence appearing real.
Face everything and run or recover.
Face everything and run and cover.
It has to play within. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's good. I think it's good. Anything that we can change our mindset on the basic false evidence appearing real. But there is a part of that our ego is our beast ego runs on the subconscious programming of fear. And that is really, the beast ego is a lot of the subconscious that's running us and is ruling us. And we need to be conscious creators, not creating from the subconscious level, which is the beast ego. That is like on automatic pilot. So, and so we've talked about that before. You hear us talk about the beast ego all the time. And I'm like, yeah, that's totally the subconscious that's underneath, that's like running us, that we give our authority and power over to subconsciously, unconsciously.
Is there any basic blueprints of life to be rewarded, or consequential things that could negatively affect our life, disease, or anything? Or is everything game?
What do you mean by that?
Everything game without judgment, or if we put collective consciousnesses and rules. So say I like to, and the only reason I stopped is because of fear from going to hell, or, it's as simple as that. Or the only reason I go out and run 5-7 miles a day, I've had I ride my bike. I enjoy it somewhat, but I wouldn't mind just thinking about it and seeing myself healthy with muscles and it happening.
Well, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that, because if you've read this book, then you know what we're talking about, because you're just.
And I do. And it's scary. It's like, so just sit in your bed without we basically have no body, and we become light beings, and then everything transforms in illumination into our illuminated body. And so I know it's wild. It's hard. It's not. I can't say it's hard. It's like we are so programmed. The only way to go lose weight is to go out and, not eat, or I don't know, and it's like, okay, I guess. But what I also want to say, I don't think we should beat ourselves up at all, because I've done that in religion. I didn't heal enough people like Jesus did. I didn't lay enough hands. I must have not have saved enough people. And I literally came to the dark night of the soul and about killed me.
All of us have done that. And that is why the fear element, and why we have worked very hard, Ken and I, to be able to share with you guys about how all is experience, and be able to change those English scriptures that were used to control and manipulate us through fear, to be able to see that there's a beautiful resolve underneath that has nothing to do with fear. Because fear was put in as a result of the system of duality. So think about that. The system of duality is what produced fear, or fear produced the system of duality. It goes both ways. Chicken before the egg. What does that look like? Well, they're tied into one another. So again, looking at those things objectively is going to make a huge difference, because again, we're talking about, and we're going to connect this as we keep going in this book, about the feelings that are connected in here that then creates our reality. So when we're judging, as soon as we get into the place of judging, we're in duality. And as soon as we're into that place of a duality, we've already put thoughts on it and emotions, and then we create it. So duality, how many of you here want to continue living in a bipolar world? Probably none of us. I've learned what I've needed to, and I can see that I want it to be different. So as soon as we get into the place of judging good or evil, then we're doing more of the same. And this is the subconscious programming that we're trying to get into, to defrag and to reprogram, so that we're not projecting that same thing over and over and over again. Hence, like I said, why I don't even really read the English scriptures anymore, because the English scriptures are totally about duality and polarity, and they keep fostering that and keep dividing and keep separating instead of bringing forth oneness, unity.
I would say for me, I'm definitely in a process of letting go. I mean, there's a part of me that's so tired of the duality, but then there's a part of me that I think the more we understand what's on the other side, then the more we can detach from this duality world. But there is a part of me, obviously, that still is attached to the duality, and just wanting to feel the contrast. There's things that contrast that I don't know. It's a process.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you.
Definitely a process,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not something that, I mean, I can say, yes, I don't want to live in this duality world anymore, but in reality, there is parts of me that still does. So that doesn't want to let go of it. Maybe it's just because it's my norm. It's, all I know, and so the more I realize, the more I do the study with the letters, with the ancient languages and all the study that you do, the more you realize that that the other side is better. But because you don't have any filter or reference for it, it's hard to see that it's better in some ways. So
well, and that goes back to fear, doesn't it? The fear of the unknown.
Absolutely.
And even Lemoyne asked, so who is going to be me when I change? Or so who is going to be me when I change? The whole process of us entering into oneness, unity, is so that we're no longer us. We should be so changed and transformed.
The identities. Yes.
Yeah, because we wear masks. Like in my role, and this is why we're changing our reality, because through the subconscious programming, I'm running out the fact that I'm a wife, and I'm a stepmother, and I'm a daughter, right? I've got these roles that I play with people, or even if you want to say that I'm a teacher of some sort, these are all masks that I wear, but that is not who I really am. These
so
are
my higher self is probably looking back at me going, I don't see you like that anymore. Come on up here. I'm trying to relate to my higher self, because is there a higher me somewhere? I know people that say, yes, there is. So
I think that there's 12 dimensions, 12 dimensional frequency of us running around simultaneously.
wow.
And all of it is happening quantumly at the same time. And we're trying to bring them all into oneness right here where we're at in our now. No
Right.
longer separated, no longer divided, no more lower, no more higher, collapsing all of those into a oneness reality in the moment, which is expanded consciousness and awareness that is no longer divided and separated. And that's what we're talking about.
So
And
my
that's why
higher
this
me
is so.
isn't teaching me about already what they've conquered through the healing of my old soul or whatever it may be.
What I'm saying is that oneness unity means that you are no longer separating your higher self from your lower self from where you're at right now. Because as soon as you say your higher self, you've already separated yourself from it. And quantum entanglement means that you are here all at one, running at the same time simultaneously, but your mind through subconscious programming is telling you that you are separate.
Is that, Carrie, could that possibly, my mind wants to go, with everything that's been said, it's just so beautiful. And to me, it just vibrates and it just gets me so excited. But the thing that, I agree that, we don't want to give this up, but could that be the new heaven on earth? Could it be our creating the reality of our 12th dimension here on this earth that is, you spoke of at one time, improving the blood being, we are light fractals that we will shine so much so that people will be drawn to us. But this is a processing that is beautiful to me. It's not always easy because we're running up against, the flesh and people that are not ready to what we're even experiencing or talking about today, if that makes sense.
Right. And because there's always forerunners, right? There's always forerunners, or what we've heard other people have talked about, way showers. So there's always going to be those that are running ahead, that are trying to show through their life and manifesting it so others can find the way themselves. So we're all playing those roles from each other and for each other. But when we choose to not be part of those narratives anymore and see that truly we're brothers and sisters, that we're walking this out together, then I don't have to play a role for you.
No, right. And that becomes one, right?
Yeah.
It becomes the body just functioning in such a harmonious, energetic way.
Because we're not separating from one another anymore. Right. Because all those roles separate us. So that's why, Brett, like you said about our higher self, the reason why we see it that way is because we've always been programmed to see God outside of us, right? And so then that programs us automatically to see our higher self out of us, like something that's not attainable yet. It's something that's way beyond me, when in reality, quantum wise, in what we get into this book more, it's all here, right now. We are projecting something as separateness in the system of duality, when we are the ones that are collapsing that reality to, yes, Lynn, create heavenly earth.
And that's awareness, and that's pure consciousness and awareness.
Yes.
Point.
Beautiful.
And that is the manifestation of the Mashiach, the Christ anointing. That's what we're talking about.
Beautiful.
That's why this book is so phenomenal to me, because this is talking the science behind what the Christ anointing is. Because, we get hung up. We have been so conditioned to say Jesus Christ. And so when we hear the phrase and we say Christ within you, we think it's Jesus living in us. Well, we are one with Yeshua. We are one with one another. But Christ is an anointing. An anointing is expanded consciousness that is aware of what it is creating. We're not creating in a place of ignorance. We are creating intentionally. That's the responsibility that comes with the Mashiach anointing in the oneness unity, that we are taking every thought captive, because that way which we are projecting from our mind, our thought and our intentions, with the power that backs it up through the heart, is that which we're manifesting. This is much bigger than all of us individually.
Right.
It's a collective responsibility for those who are the way showers, that are willing to step out, that are willing to take the inside journey. Because you guys, this inside journey, this stuff, this is a little bit of scariness. but it's beautiful at the same time, because we don't know who we really are without our masks until we get into the subconscious programming to see that that is what has been manifesting, but that's not who we are. So moving on, we're probably not going to get to page 24 today. And that's okay, because we're having some really good discussions, and this is fantastic foundational pieces, and I don't really care. I'm breaking my rigidness, because my rigidness is like, we're starting at 1 and we're finishing at 3, and we're going from page 3 to 24, come hell to high water, right? Subconscious programming. I'm breaking it right now. So this is good for me. I just need to breathe through it because I'm feeling a little stress right now. So I'm dealing with my shadow right now, guys. Thank you. I'll be real and transparent and tell you guys what part of my shadow is, and that's part of it, my excessive need for control.
You can cut us off.
No, I don't want to cut you off because we're having such great conversations, but you will see me try to bring us and steer us back around to the subject at hand, because we can go in 50 million directions and we'll never even touch a lick at this book. And this book is so important. I don't want us to lose track of that because of the importance of the information. So I appreciate you guys being patient with my shadow as I'm dealing with my subconscious programming. So I want to move on to the next subtitle. Always matter, never mind. Always mind, never matter. This little subsection, I don't know about you guys, but when I read through this, it started getting to some mind-blowing stuff. Like this little subtitle, I read it and I had to set the book down and just ponder what I just read because of our indoctrination and going back to the subconscious programming. I'm like, oh my gosh, how much of the indoctrination has shaped it? Like, we have to sometimes take a step back. We really have to take a step back and look and pause to reflect, to go, holy crap. Whoa, okay. Again, let's get out of the victim mentality. Let's get into the creator place. Let's use the abilities and not have something control and reign us, beast ego, when we can change and create something different. So I'll start out with the first line, and then you guys, if you want to jump in for the next 2 pages, because I'm sure you guys highlighted stuff too, because if I did, I know you guys did, because this is some good stuff in here. First line, connecting the dots between the outer physical world of the observable and the inner mental world of thought has always presented quite a challenge to scientists and philosophers. And that's what this whole rest of this little subsection is. So what did you guys get in these next 2 pages? What were some of the things that you underlined that really jumped off the page at you?
Well, mine kind of jumps onto the next page, but points directly back to that subtitle, which was the study of matter was the jurisdiction of science, always matter, never mind. Whereas the mind was God's instrument. So the study of it felt religion, always mind, never matter. And I think that was, sorry, my mom's out mowing. So
I don't even hear it. No,
oh, that's
I don't
good.
even hear it.
Fancy Bluetooth is paying off. Okay. So what stood out for me on that point was how we want to believe that we've on the religion side, former religion side, we wanted to believe that we had this free will, but yet when you're dealing with the science side of things, it makes it seem like everything is fatalistic and determined and according to laws. So I'm very much like you in a why sense, and science was always really, something that intrigued me, and I could never really reconcile that. It felt like I had to step into a different state of mind or consciousness to be in a spiritual state, and then I had to be in a completely different mindset to be learning things about science or the atmosphere or that kind of thing. So the last couple of years, and especially stumbling onto your channel and seeing all of those things kind of have fluidity across the board, and this book is great for pointing out where that overlap happens, as opposed to seeing them in opposition to one another or existing separate from one another, because really one negates the other. When you look at it in terms of that the mind is always just a religious thing, then you're really losing any kind of scientific connection to it whatsoever. You exactly. Can't have an appreciation of both. And even if you try to, you're kind of fooling yourself based on the world's definitions of this one falls into this category, that one falls into that category.
Well, and those 2 things, very well spoken, Ashley. Totally agree with that. The way that you describe that really is duality, right? Mm-hmm. The way they separated it, that is duality. So separating the mind into the God and then the matter into science is dividing something that is meant to be brought together in oneness unity.
Aren't we supposed to try to make, and maybe I'm wrong, or we're trying to get into this, we just go back to source and there would be no reason for anything. For instance, I'm saying, aren't we supposed to like make bipolar good? Or are we supposed to get rid of it altogether?
Well, see, when you put the label good on it, you just
I know, I don't
back
want to
into
put
duality.
good on it. I want to
Because
say,
duality is experiences. And as soon
okay,
as
so
we put
bipolar experience.
bipolar experience is for us to experience that which is not sustainable so we can find that which is.
All right, you're gonna have to break that down, Carrie.
Okay, so I will break this down and this will make
Anyway.
sense to you because of what we were just talking about was separating science and talking about religion and keeping those two things, the mind and matter, separated because of our indoctrination. So in the system of duality, what happens, and this is reason why the system of duality of good and evil is not sustainable, because it never resolves itself. What we're meant to do is to bring it into balance, but we're supposed to see the duality to see that as the pendulum swings one way, then it will have to swing the other because it's always seeking balance. That is forever. Our bodies are regulated by that. Nature is regulated by that. Democrat and Republican is dictated by that. Look at how the tides are. Look at how the sun is. Look at how the moon is. When there's too much light in the moon, what happens? Darkness comes. When there's too much darkness, then light comes. Look at the tides. When there's too much water, it then begins to recede. Look at the sun. When it's full noon and it sets, it has to go into darkness. Too much darkness, the light has to come. It is showing us that the system of duality is never going to reconcile itself. So in our spiritual environment, we've had a tremendous amount of darkness, have we not?
It's just dark energy that needs to be put into light. I mean,
it's seeking for the balance of light.
Okay.
But what happens in the system of duality, when we judge, we say that good is going to vanquish evil. So therefore, we bring a lot of light and we begin chasing down evil, that we're going to go ahead and eradicate it. But if you have too much light, then what happens? Then evil has to increase to bring balance. The whole thing is to point us inwardly to find the balance between us, because we were separated into light and into darkness. The Elohim, look at Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 3. The Elohim were divided into light and into dark, dual, bipolar. Our job is to take those two and bring them into unity, into the center where we've rendered it clear and neutralized it, so it's no longer bipolar. It becomes unified. And that is when the light comes in and embraces the dark and brings them in, so that all that remains is truth, which is light, which is information, without judging it. So we take our light into our shadow, because nobody wants us to have someone else see our shadow, right? You guys don't want to see me having a tissy fit and a tantrum because I'm not having control over this meeting, because we're not going to get to page 24. You don't want to see that. And I certainly don't want to show it to you. So I'm laughing at myself going, yep, it's there. It's there. I'm freaking out right now because we're not going to get to page 24. But if I was really, if it was in a day where it was in my house, I'd probably start stomping my feet and, huffing under my breath and getting a little sweat on my brow, because I want to control it, because that dark shadow of my side needs to be embraced by the light, because that happened from a wounding when I was a little child, that I needed to have control because so much was out of control. So this book, bringing it back here, is showing me how I can take control of my reality, so I don't have to have my shadow subconscious programming run my life and allow those things to take my reality, when I'm taking my power back instead of it giving my power away to that which is of my shadow. Does that make sense? So duality is always meant to bring us into oneness, unity, and balance. And we see the futility of living in the dual system because it never is able to balance to center. That's why we go, I don't want to play this game anymore. I've been on both sides. I've been swinging both pendulums. And guess what? Balance never comes because it's not meant to. It's meant to show you that in order for us to overcome it and exit us out of it, we have to find the balance within us, the light and the dark. That is why the yin yang symbol is balance. That's the whole thing about Taoism and all that, is seeking balance, because we are manifesting it on the outside. You want a new heaven, earth, you need to manifest it here.
Right. So do you think in the teachers, and you would say, we chose to come here and be in, is there other actors in the show? Like it says, there's always going to be a Caesar. There's always going to, I mean, is this going to go on and on or ever? Or are we trying to jump out of this and have pure,
we're creating a new reality where we are all sovereign beings and we have no one over us, because we are responsible, autonomous beings that are responsible for our own creation. We do not need anybody to govern us because we are the head over our own temple.
So we don't need to have the yin yang anymore.
Well, yin yang is letting us know that that's an inward reality to find balance within. That symbol is about finding balance within, marrying the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, the positive and the negative energies. So again, we get tripped up on judging, right? The very first time I saw that the feminine energy was negative, I went, that's not so, we're not negative. And I got totally defensive in a childlike manner, because I have been indoctrinated to believe that anytime I hear the word negative, it's a bad thing, because of judging, because of the indoctrination between the tree of good and evil. So when I began to understand, which we need to march on a little bit because this begins talking about energy, when I began to realize that everything was energy, then I stopped judging it. Then I realized that there was a negative energy and a positive energy that come together to create. I didn't have to judge it as bad or good. Hence why women have had the bad rap because of what Eve did, which is bunk anyway, because when you take a look at the sacred writings, it doesn't say that at all. Mankind fell into experience to see what it was like to be separated in order to come back together and experience polarity as an experiment, as an experience of what it was like to take your creator energy to create both poles at the same time and what would happen as a result. And the result was, oh, it's quite vanity. It's futile. We are never going to win this game. We all fell. We fell into this experience because we abused our powers as creators, because we wanted to win. We wanted to experience, is good going to triumph over evil, or is evil going to triumph over good? And we realized back and forth over the centuries, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Are you serious? We've all gone mad. Until we get to the Christ anointing and unify ourselves again. And then we have the responsibility to fix that which was broken, which is duality. But we got to fix that in here, because we are dual on the inside. We have been totally divided. We have taken spirituality and materiality, and we've made the material path and the spiritual path, and we've divided it instead of seeing that they've meant to be one and the same, where we are responsible for our actions because our actions impact the material world. That's what I'm talking about here. This is insanity. This is wholeness and healing. This is illness, sickness, and disease. This is health and wellness. Does that make sense? Did I help answer that? To a degree, Brett?
Yeah, I just thinking of this, like, if God, or we are God, we came to see, the fall is what I was getting on some different, and you're saying we chose all this, and that's totally fine. But the fall, I thought, was basically where God fell into the blood man. It wanted itself to experience itself, to extensionally use its power to expand anything in multifractal beings that we are, that we can actually do. We can expand anything we want, as far as we want, as far as good or bad as we want, whatever we want, and create our own civilizations through what we are, because we are God in the flesh. And God, right. I mean, consciousness
fell into the blood man. That's,
Wow.
you're saying the same thing. We're saying the exact same thing.
Okay.
Consciousness fell into the blood man to experience and create in this dual reality, to experience what it is like to live in dual bipolar realms, in creating experiences on both sides, so that
And
we
the
can render
and then
them.
the intention and the motivation is what you're going to help me with. The intention of that, we're kind of saying what the intention and the motivation of all that was for. I'm like,
Well,
if I
again,
get, if I get
Brett,
that.
A lot of that, just to let you know, a lot of that in the 500 videos that Ken and I have done, we've explained that in many, 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 many videos. I don't have an example, like I can't tell you the name of the video, but
Right.
Ken and I repeatedly, especially if you go through his playlist, Excavations at Dawn, we specifically went over that in a succession of like 80 different teachings to bring people into the understanding of falling into the experience and why we chose to do it, and taking it from the Hebrew and Aramaic languages. So if you need answers there, I would just point you to that playlist and start from the beginning and start working your way through it, and it should help you a lot. But at this point, what we're doing is we're not answering the questions as to why we came and why we were here.
Right.
And why the experience. What we're doing with this book, and why I want to bring us back on track, is because we're changing our reality. We get hung up on the past experiences to try to make sense of where we are in our now reality, and we will give our power away to the past. We want to look forward to the future of the promises, and so we give our power away to the future, and we're ignoring the now moment. This is about the now moment of creating a reality that will manifest externally, so that the past and the future doesn't matter, because we're collapsing them into a single reality in our now moment, quantumly.
Well, that's why I don't think this book doesn't explain what you and Ken have covered to help us with the foundation.
That's why I'm saying that I'm going to be bringing certain Hebrew words and Hebrew letters so that you can connect to it into the sacred languages, and why I'm doing this.
Perfect. Yeah, I say it's awesome. It's a great marriage union. I mean,
and this is why I'm talking about this book.
Right.
Because, if I can't connect it to the whole reason why I have devoted the last 6 years of my life to the sacred languages, then I'm going to have a hard time trying to go, what does the sacred languages have to do with anything other than it tickles my brain, until I realize it's intimately tied with changing my reality into my now that affects all of us on a quantum level. The power of oneness unity, when we can come together and create based upon intention of a reality that we want to see, and we come together as brothers and sisters to fix it out of the duality, bipolar realm that we've been living in, to a unified field where we become brothers and sisters, and we stop dividing and separating and judging.
Yep. Okay.
So that we have one singular truth, the law of one truth.
Right.
Instead of multiple truths based on good or evil, which is always going to separate and divide. Because guaranteed, Republicans think that they're walking in the truth, and Democrats think they're walking in the truth. And what we do is we separate and we point fingers and we accuse, and we never come together in oneness unity. That is vanity. That is the system of duality, and it's broke. It doesn't work for what we are wanting now as a collective consciousness that really wants peace. And if we ever think that we're going to get it externally by having the right candidate in office, we've deluded ourselves. It starts right here.
Carrie,
yeah.
Carrie, that's my main draw to all of this, the New Age movement and this book. The main draw is that you can tie it in to the ancient languages. I mean, it's just confirmation to me. And otherwise, I never would have looked at this.
I totally
get
it.
I just want to thank you very much.
You're welcome, Lemoyne. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. That's, again, why I wanted to show it on this channel, because I can connect it directly to the sacred languages and what it's talking about.
I keep getting that concept of, okay, you know how hard you go to a restaurant and you got something on the menu, you got a bunch of, and you're like, I got to choose that. But then if you only had one thing, you would have no problem choosing. So would we either, you know what I'm saying? So, but then we would say, we don't really have a choice anymore. So it's almost like if we all have one mind in one thing. I mean, I know in this book, it says it's the possibilities of everything, because you can tie it back to the scripture, which says all things are possible. You can look at quantum. I could go into a Christian thing that says right here, all things are possible. Are all things possible?
But here's the deal on that. It's one thing to read it in a black and white page unless you understand why it's possible. Because when that was written, there was no quantum physics. So there was a spiritual understanding. But when you're separating spirituality from science and separating them, just like Ashley said, she felt like she had to have two different minds in order to enter into each one. So if I'm going to go into science, I have to have one mind. If I'm going to go into spirituality or religion, I have to have a separate mind, which has kept us separated. So even though that was penned in the 1500 or in the 1500s with the King James Bible, that all things are possible, we get that. It's like, okay, I get it. But what does that mean to me? If I cannot apply this, or if I can't apply the sacred languages to making change, then why the hell am I doing it?
Right.
I don't need to have my brain puffed up with knowledge. That is the Greco-Roman mindset that has kept us spinning our wheels in the sand without having anything that can move and change. That is philosophy. Philosophy is great to sit down with a cup of coffee and to contemplate your navel with your neighbor of what it sounds like for philosophical conversations to make yourself sound smart. But how does that bring resolve to the current reality that we are all experiencing? When we have created it, we're manifesting it. Do you want something different? I don't want to be in the Greco-Roman mindset anymore. I don't want to read a book and go, oh, I know how to do that if I've never actually done it. So this is giving us the blueprints of taking the sacred languages. Now, when you see the letter bet, when it says go on the inside, you're going to know. And I am going to break down for you, if we can ever get there, ha ha ha, my shadow showing up again. If we can ever get there, I'm going to share with you about the word Haya to Yod He Vav He based upon my understanding and how it connects to this book. And once you see that, every time you see the tetragrammaton as to Yod He Vav He, you're going to intimately be able to tie it to yourself in manifesting the reality that you want to create as a creator. Because that tetragrammaton was to be a sign and a symbol for us becoming as being, to then become a creator over our reality, because we've overcome the ignorance of the subconscious realm that has been ruling us, and we take our power back. Again, responsible creators. Responsible creators. So, page 7, we haven't moved very far. We've only gotten 4 pages, and we'll probably be ending at about 3 o'clock. So we'll get wherever we get, and we'll pick up where we have left off next week. Right after the comment where Ashley was talking about the jurisdiction of science and that wonderful phrase that she read to us, there was a belief system that was imposed as duality between the concepts of mind and matter. And that's what we were talking about, that this is really what has polarized us to keep us in a system of duality. And when I read that, I had to again set the book down, going, science, the way it was in the old system helped us to polarize even greater because of our indoctrination from our education systems. Everything has to change. Everything. The old models aren't going to work anymore because we have risen above that in our conscious level to see we can't separate these anymore. So that's why Nassim Haramim, what is the name of that he does, Regina? Nassim Haramim, what does he call his study with physics? Quantified?
Gosh, yeah. And the thing is, we should put it in the link, because if you want some more detail about the science part of it, he opened it up. At first it was all you had to pay for it. And then he decided to open it up to everyone to just come in and take it for free. And it's an in-depth science, all the new science. He goes down from, what it used to be clear till today, and all the differences and the changes that happened all the way through. It's really interesting. It's if you're drawn to that, it's really good. But I can't, it's Science Something Institute. I can't, there's more to it than that.
Well, you can look it up. It's Nassim
I will.
Haramim. And we
See
can
what
post
Karen
it.
means, yes.
Yeah, we can post the link. I'm going to need to get my charger here soon. Hopefully I'll last a little bit longer. I didn't realize my battery was going to be going this far. And Brett, I do agree with what Lemoyne said. You do ask really good questions. Some of your questions that you have are more on the outside of what we're discussing on this book. And so I'm not wanting to cut you off at all. I'm just saying that those conversations are like another hour conversation that would take us completely out of what the scope of this meeting is. But I understand your reason for asking them, and they are excellent questions, because these are a lot of the things that we haven't been able to ask, or we've been in religious circles or in religious churches, and the Spirit begins bringing these things to us, and we don't have answers. Hence why we're all reaching out to something greater than the religious program that has been given to us, because our minds are expanding, our consciousness is expanding, and the things that were serving us before are no longer serving us, because there's a truth that is being revealed to us at the heart level that the religious structures that have been given to us haven't been able to support any longer. And so I totally get where you're at, and it's very frustrating. So I'm not wanting to cut you off or to say that you don't have any valid questions, because you do. That's like a scope for another discussion on another time. And so my heart goes out to you, and I don't want to shut you down to say that your voice and your questions aren't valid, because they very much are.
Well, that's fine. I hear you speaking, and I'm like, I think she's saying the same thing that I've already actually experienced through different teachers. Because I've been on this journey with this. It's only for a couple years, but from a different place that wherever I was at. So I was hearing you, and I was like, and then you just said, it's good to confirmation to where I'm at, because something has to settle, and then we just get more. We just get more.
We do.
So,
we do.
And I want to keep on this book too, because it does. It's literally amazing. It must be doing something to me, because I'm going back into that, sometimes in that brain fog. It's almost like am I doing something wrong here?
Well, again, subconscious programming, and we're going to be able to get to the root of all of that, right?
I think it's burning out. It's the wrath and the love, and it has to burn out all of the old.
That letter sheen, that fire of purification is what we're all experiencing right now. And that is why we're getting the brain fog. That's why you hear people talk about ascension symptoms. So what we're doing is we're doing a lot right now, whether we know it or not. We are doing a tremendous amount of work that we are not even fully consciously aware of, being conduits here on earth to be able to serve the Creator by just being here. And so I appreciate you guys are here, because I know that we're all going through tremendous changes that we need to support one another. So, we need to make time to address those things too. It doesn't need to be just about this book, so I get it. And I appreciate the questions. And I do want to say that there are a lot of teachers that are teaching the same material. They're just using different words. And so sometimes we get hung up on the vernacular, because someone else will say a different word, but it really means the same thing. That's the trouble with English, right? Like if we all had one universal language and not English, which is like an amalgamation of all these different languages and becomes obscure and it gets all messy. If we were to go back to the root of a pure language, because doesn't it even in the English scripture say, I will return a pure language to them? Then we have the same foundation. So as we are discussing and using the same words, if I use the word teshuvah with you, you will know exactly what it means, because there's no longer any ambiguity. There's no, well, my thought of teshuvah is this, or my truth is this. It's like, no, it's very foundational. This is what it is. It is truth. It doesn't have a bias. There is no polarity in it. There is no, I see teshuvah this way and I see teshuvah another way. Hebrew Aramaic is very definitive in its nature, yet it's expansive at the same time. So it's contractive and expansive at the same time, which then really is our heartbeat. It's the pulse of creation through us in expansion and contraction as we are walking through the system of duality to render it neutral so that we can have the Mashiach anointing come forward. So that's where we get hung up on, is a lot of the definitions of the English words that trip us up when we're really saying the exact same thing. Hopefully that
So I know I'm going to stop after this, but so you're saying a creator, is there really a supreme being, or is there a consensus here with all of us?
Well, there
you
is
get what
a
I'm
supreme
saying?
being. Yes. Okay. So Supreme being, in other words, Ken actually broke down supreme being here a couple weeks ago. If you go back to our teachings, he did break that down, and it was some of the last stuff that he did on Excavations of Dawn, talking about the supreme being, is that we are all fractals of the supreme being, and it's called collective consciousness. Yes. And collective consciousness as a creator source, we are all going back to the place of being unified as the supreme being in the fractals, in our experience, in the system that we're creating. But yes, we are becoming one and creating the supreme being, which if you even look at the law of one material, it talks about that it is a social memory complex. And a social memory complex is a supreme being.
It gave itself, all of itself. To do whatever it's so beautiful, really.
It is. And we are fractals of that. We are the supreme being in our individuation, experiencing our own reality. And we are taking all of our experiences and bringing back to the collective so that we can all extract wisdom from it. So that's why we've all had to play the roles, to then take off the masks, to then take all the wisdom, or take all the experiences and extract the wisdom so that we continue moving forward in that wisdom, but not in the narratives and the roles that we've been playing, because we no longer need to play them.
And my childlikeness keeps coming back even further from the beginning of when I was
there you
little.
go.
It says, okay, so then where did that energy come from?
Well, that's all source creator, right? Awareness is childlike innocence that is just expressing or viewing that which is coming within its field. That's not judging. Children don't care. When you're outside, I mean, when we were little, we didn't have any judgment on anything. We learned all of our judging from our religious programming and our parents. When I was outside playing, I could care less about good and evil. All I wanted to do was go out and roll on the grass, or go play in a mud puddle, or climb a tree. I mean, I was very much a tomboy. I loved being in nature. I didn't care about good and evil. I didn't care about politics. I had no judging one way or another. I was in fascination with creation, and I just wanted to be a part of it, and everything was fresh and new. That's what we're returning to.
And where did that come from? And where did that come from? And where did that come from, Mom? And where did that come from, Mom? And where did that come from? And then where did that come from? You know, so it's like, how could anything create itself out of nothingness? And we'll go on. I think we probably should go on. So,
well, again, we get hung up on the why in a lot of ways.
Or how.
Instead of just being in the moment.
Right.
So when you're always seeking the why, you're not living in the moment. You're giving your power away, seeking for answers, and taking all of your energy to try to seek answers for something that really is irrelevant. Because what is it going to do for you? You're going to just keep chasing it. You're just going to keep chasing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably, now I can just enjoy my time here and not worry about it.
You don't have to chase the why. You don't have to chase the why. It's about us right now in our creator ability. So, having said that, energy is the very fabric of all things material and is responsive to mind. So, if we chase the whys, what are we doing if we're just sitting idle and running on our subconscious programs? We're not doing anything. We're trying to find these answers of stuff that already happened in the past that have nothing to do with us here and now.
Well, in a certain sense too, you know, if attention or energy goes where attention, you know, flows, if we're focused on the lack of an answer, but we look at it through the lens of, if we just accept that we know that we are a part of source creator, we are these fragments of it, it's trusting that as we move through things upon that faith, that those answers will be revealed to us. And like, I know when I had kind of a reckoning moment of a lot of my old religious views being challenged, my life versus Proverbs 3:6, acknowledge in all your ways, he'll direct your paths. And so I that was my life verse before that kind of reckoning moment. But I just kind of took that moment in prayer where a lot of things weren't jiving with me from the old religion, and just said, you know, just guide me each step of the way, give me what I need to know for where I am right now. And I can very much, Carrie, I relate to like having a whole plan laid out. We're going to deal with this in this time. And it is fighting that nature in me to just be able to say with Source, just reveal to me what I need to digest right now. I think I've lived enough life at this point to know, even if all the information's handed to me, I'm not going to digest it all in one sitting. And there's so many times when I'll listen to what Carrie and Ken say that I'm just like, that's going to take a couple replays because I get it, but like my spirit hasn't absorbed it yet. And there's all those old like patterns and wirings that even though I've heard it, I haven't answered why I haven't embraced it fully yet. So I would just encourage you, Brett, in that way too, that like I have had to take a certain level of peace because I wasn't able to absorb anything in the moment when I was trying to get all of it in the moment. So I've just kind of like given it up of let me focus on what I need for this moment to get as far forward as I need to with what's currently being given me.
Yeah, no, that's good. I appreciate that. You know, it's that same thing. If we're always looking for why, if our attention is always focused on why, we're never going to get the answers. Because
I think it's a part of a God itself or source creator itself. It's always seeking it, how much power it actually can have. I mean, it knows it has all power, but it's always seeking to expand itself further and further and whatever. It's all knowing, everlasting, never ending, all possibilities, all things. I don't think there's a limit. And so it's part of me. And I'm like,
yeah, I'm gonna challenge you there. Instead of saying it externally, say that about you. I am ever challenging myself. I am ever expanding. I am ever growing.
I am, yeah.
And that which we are not. So if we declare something that we are, the areas, if I say I'm ever expanding and my body is not lining up or my thoughts are not lining up, it's going to be challenged. And you're going to see that you've been restricted.
See, that's like Ash said, though. I go, please just guide me. You know, just make sure you guide me. And I'm like, gosh, to me anymore, I is. And so I can't, if I'm in duality again, I'm saying, okay, there's something outside of me guiding me. Unless it is. Anyway, it's quantum. And that's what this book's about. It's wild. So.
Hold on just a second here. I'm going to put myself on mute. You guys can talk here a little bit more because my battery is going to die and I need my husband to bring my charger to me. So I just don't want to shout it out. So.
Right, to your point about that, I've started tinkering with that. That's one of the hard things. Like when we talk about that infant mindset, like when we do have a mind of a child, and especially in like old religious views, we think of there being this outside source that's going to take care of us and pave a way. And when we start to realize that we are a part of that, then we're creators, then it's like, well, who's going to take care of me? And a lot of times I don't feel equipped to take care of me. So that can be a little scary, but I have, in the same way that I've kind of prayed for, you know, just show me what I need to know for right now, taking on more of like those mantras of I am finding my way. I have what I need for right now. And a lot of that is becoming more empowering the more that I'm putting it, like Carrie said, in terms of myself, than having it be something separate from myself. So if it helps, but I get that weird duality thing of like, there's something outside me I'm praying to versus I'm praying to myself. Like it is a weird kind of mind bending thing.
The hope is, I guess, we have multi beings of ourself outside of us that already healed ourselves before us because it's infinite and it's all oneness and we have all answers and whatever. It's kind of like, what's the point then? What's the, here's beautiful bit.
It's called growing up and maturation. The point is maturing and going through all the phases of what it's like to be empty and void, tohu bohu, and then filling ourselves up with the expanse of the experience. What is it like to become a creator and born into an infant body that knows nothing and has to start from the beginning through the experience and growing and ascending into mastery? What is that like? Because we have the ability. So the whole expression of our life is the expansion of learning and growing and ascending, of starting from nothing to become the fullness of everything as I am. So here's part of what I see where we're going, because we're not going to get much further. Yeah, we're not going to get much further. Well, we made it to page 7. we don't trust ourselves on the inside. And when I say this, I'm speaking to myself, and I'm echoing exactly what Ashley just said. When we put things on the external element as God on the outside of it, so that God is taking care of us, we give up our power to an external source. And then we become at the whim of the God that is over us to provide for us. Now, that worked fine when we were in a lower state of consciousness, because this is part of our evoluting. This is part of our evolution in growing in maturation and beginning to see that we are a creator ourselves. Again, I am pointing the fingers all right back here at me, because this is how I lived most of my life. And I've been challenged in these areas to realize that as a creator, and reading, I'm 2/3 the way done with this book. So there's a lot that I already know that we're going into that I'm very excited to share. And I guess if it takes us a year, it takes us a year. I just need to get over my control. But as we are taking responsibility, we realize that that God is what is in here. That level of consciousness and creator is right here. And so when we don't trust on the inside, we don't trust ourselves, but we don't trust creator, because that's who we are on the inside. And that's because we haven't known that we have the power, and we're afraid of the power that we have. And why are we afraid of the power we have? Because when you have the reality that you are Elohim, and you realize that you created this external, you then become highly aware and conscious of your creator ability. And then you realize that we created all of these things. We created the nuclear bomb. We created the separation. We created communism. We created the penalty systems. We created our education system. We created our judicial system. We created our government system. We've created everything that's on the external side, and we are having to live in our own creation so that we can then learn to be responsible of how to change it. So we aren't trusting ourselves because we see the mess that we made. And if
but I didn't, and I'm not guilty by association, or am I?
We're all one.
I was just going to say the same. If we consider ourselves connected in that way, and that's where we get into non-judgment, is if we actually see all of ourselves as an extension of one another, that's where, if you judge something else, you're judging yourself. If we consider ourselves in oneness, if we look on to all that stuff, which we would presently deem bad or wrong and disconnected from it, then we're not going to be able to make progress or bring that into unity, because we're judging that part of ourselves.
Exactly. That's exactly.
As a child, as a child, you're not doing that.
No, because you're essentially in Christ consciousness when you're a little child. All you are is in loving awareness. Period. Right. You aren't judging anything.
Pure subconsciousness, it's just everything comes right in. And that's why I hear the 0 to 7 is such the powerful point in your life, because
you are God consciousness.
You just believe everything you're told.
You are God consciousness. You are loving awareness. You are taking everything in, and you have not formed any judgments at that point. It's through the system of duality and through our education system and how the parents teach us and how the church teaches us in the Sunday school that we then get into the place of separation and division that causes all the chaos in our life. And so then we become divided on the inside. We have all this chaos, and we're manifesting it on the outside because we were never instructed as we were maturing the power of what we have. And part of that is that you would not want to give your car keys to a 7-year-old, because they don't have the ability to have the awareness and the responsibility behind the seat of the car, let alone they couldn't touch the pedals, but they wouldn't have the ability to be able to navigate the responsibility that it comes with having a set of car keys to go take the car out for a spin at 7 years old. So this consciousness of us being a creator is given to us at a certain level of our consciousness, so that we are consciously creating that which we want to see manifest, taking responsibility for our own creation, because we are at the level that we can be responsible. This is why the teachings of Mother and Father have been separated in the sacred languages. Mother teaches you to the age of accountability so that you are responsible for your actions. Then you get into the side of power of Father. So then you become a conscious creator because you are now responsible for your actions. and the
It's
consequences that come from those things.
My daughter's 13, and I'm telling you guys, when it's like whatever level I'm ready to learn at, it's like it's reflecting in my life. It's so wild. I don't know.
Well, if we were all being raised in a place where we knew that the intention to raise us up was to be conscious creators, how differently would our rearing be? So what we are doing.
It's like that on page
Yes.
24, whatever, when he does with his daughter. So
right.
we got
and
to
we're
the
gonna
end.
Get to that. We will get to that.
That's
so
beautiful.
the importance is when you begin reparenting ourselves, we become the conscious creators so that when we have children, we begin to rear them up in a way that they should go so that when they become an adult, they won't depart from it because they will understand the responsibility that they have with the gift and the royal position that we have in heirship, in our inheritance as creators, and then we'll become responsible for it instead of giving our power away to an external source saying the government will fix it for me. The government has everything that I need.
Isn't that the rod of correction? The rod is actually your imagination. So it's, when I thought the rod of correction was whooping them on the butt, but the rod, if you look it up in Hebrew and everything, it was like the rod, the Jesse staff, the rod of whatever was the rods which were in your mind or in your heart. And
that's the representation of the lamed, and lamed means to instruct and to teach and to become a teacher. And the lamed is also the first letter of the word for heart, lamed bet. The rod of instruction is to teach you on the inside, leb, your heart. So there's instruction that comes in from somebody who has a staff of authority. So if you want to look at it as Buddha, if you want to look at it as Yeshua, an ascended individual that has mastered life, mastered self by emptying of self and living in Christ consciousness, they have a staff of authority that they are bringing in order to teach you the instruction on the inside that affects your leb, your heart, lamed bet. Staff of authority. So it's authority on the inside, your heart. And that is why any good guru, which is Sanskrit, any good guru is going to always point you inwardly, is always going to point you inwardly because your heart is what is instructing you. It has its own staff of authority because that's where creator source dwells. That is where you, the real you is, not this mask, not the face, right here, the soul essence within your heart. And that is what is instructing us. And that is why we have to get to the place where our mind and our heart is connected so that we are creating from the place of where love germinates and originates. Because here's the other thing, and I'm going to flip this around and this will make sense because the subconscious programming is the Bet Lamed. Bet Lamed is bell. It's another word for heart. So why is that? Why is a word translated as heart as leb, but then it can be translated in another area for heart and it's bel, bet lamed, the exact opposite order of the letters. Why? Because bet lamed is a heart that is fearful and anxious and has terror. So when we read it, see, you would never see that in English. You would just see the word translated as heart. You would have no idea what this is talking about. So the first one, lamed bet, is authority on the inside. The other one that has fearful and anxiousness, now on the inside, there's authority that is running you. Your subconscious programming of fears through the indoctrination, through the system of duality. I can't do this or I'm going to be punished by God. If I do this, I'm going to go to hell. These indoctrination programs are making our heart fearful and anxious. So now that subconscious programming is running us and has the authority over us. That's why we have to flip it so that we have the staff of authority over our inside and have our heart set in the right order. So that which we are creating is no longer full of chaos and fear. And that is what this book is addressing. So when I began seeing that, even with the Hebrew word leb, heart versus Baal, and I was being able to see this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so phenomenal because I can keep dumping Hebrew words to explain these concepts that science is bringing forth through quantum physics to change our reality. I don't want the subconscious programming of fear of the beast ego running my life anymore. I don't want the indoctrination from my parents running this ship anymore. I don't want politics to influence me anymore. I don't want any outside narrative to influence me, period, because it's all based on fear and control. I want my heart to lead. I want my heart to be my reality. I want to see you guys from my heart and not from the face that I see on the outside. I want to see you from the heart level. Because this doesn't matter. It's right here.
Carrie?
Yeah.
Could I thank you for something?
Absolutely.
A year and a half ago, I think it was, I watched a movie called Infinite Potential, and it was about David Bohm, a scientist. He's not here anymore, but he was kind of in the middle of where we all are with the old stuff and breaking into the new. And I loved the movie. I read so much about quantum physics. I'm not going to tell you I understand it, but it just rang true with me that it was beautiful. And see, I don't have anybody to talk to these things about with these things, go to lunch with a friend. They'd probably be polite, but so I am grateful because of meeting you and Ken, and you guys are just there to help us. I'm sure there are other people in the world, but I'm fortunate to have found you guys, and it comes together for me. Even before this book, it filled my heart, and I feel, and I don't want this to sound elitist or special, because God, no, but I feel that we are so blessed that we would have the languages to put with this, because I see that, God, the universe, whatever you want to say, it's just moving everybody toward the right spot, because everything is evolving. Our knowledge of the world, I mean, in that movie, it showed that, all we were trained to look at is the little planets up there in the sky, but all that space in between is called the planum, and that has more energy in it. In a thimble, there's more energy. And I mean, it just made my heart happy. So the way that you guys have been able to put this together, I am so thankful, because I think we're all very fortunate at this moment. Everybody's going to get here and we're not done, but right. I'm just so grateful for the spot we're at.
I agree. Very well said. I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
I would echo that. And you already know, Carrie, I kind of dumped on you the first time I wrote you an email.
I love it though. Your heart, Zarin. You and Vanessa are such amazing people. And
yeah. So Lynn, I just want to echo that, and you are the one you've been waiting for, Lynn, and the only reason you're here listening to Carrie is because you changed something inside you that says, hey, I want to listen to myself. And she's the expression of that. Ken's the expression of that.
That's so awesome, Zarin. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thanks. Yes, she is.
Well, that's the beautiful part, is we are all the expressions of one another. That which we are seeing coming back is that which is being projected from us. And so we're going to see that as we continue on in this journey through the languages and through this book and marrying the two, that our environment and the people that come within our sphere is going to change. So expect that. Expect that people will be coming and people will be leaving based upon where you are in your place of becoming, because that's going to be attracting a completely different signature frequency that repels and also draws at the same time, because it's a direct reflection of the work that you've done on the inside. So if you're one that has a lot of chaos in your life, that's what you're attracting. But once you get more of that shalom within you, that's what you're going to attract as well, because it's a mirror, because that's what you're creating in your space and drawing that to you. And that's why we're all gathering here, because we've all done a level of work, and that's the reflection of what's going on and why we're gathering together. So I see it, you guys are awesome. I mean, again, words of affirmation are like my love language. So I feel very loved right now, but I'm also understanding that there's the micro to the macro, and we're all doing this for each other, or else we wouldn't be gathering here in this moment with each other. So thank you for your work, because we're all doing it.
And I think one of the biggest, coolest things is, and I get pushed back to like this Avatar movie and how that species was, I see you as an alien, and I have to treat you with such, wow, instead of the old programming that I thought saw you as a human. If you were another species, I'd be like so indifferent to you. I'd be like, what, I would like to hear, welcome to our planet, all this cool stuff, but we are responsible for our own civilizations forever. It's like we can make our own civilizations within ourselves, which then in turn brings energy out into everything else. And I'm always one of them miracles, utopia guys, I'm like, gosh, I just want all that. I want all that now, it's like.
Well, this book is going to be showing us how. That's awesome. The amazing part. That whole beginning first chapter, or the introduction last week, was talking about spontaneous remissions, of bringing healing into our bodies now, about creating and manifesting realities in our now. And so if you think about all the futuristic stuff that we want, we have all of those answers within us, because quantumly, from the future and the past, it's all simultaneous. So all we have to do is tap into those things and bring it into our now. The only thing that limits us is right here.
You're there for me right there. You just reminded me again that it was already there. I was always, I'm limiting myself again. I want that utopia. You're like, no, Brett, it's right here. You're me.
Yeah, it's right here. It's our mind that limits us through the subconscious programming. And this book is going to get to the root of that so that we don't have to be subject to it anymore. We are going to flip our heart into the right order. We're going to bring it so that the Lamed is standing first, the staff of authority that is directly connected to light. And we're going to have that authority on the inside that then is going to manifest our external reality. And I know that we didn't get very far in the book today, but I'm hoping that if anybody listened on YouTube, that they were getting something from this conversation, because we did talk about a lot of stuff today. And, for us to understand why are we doing this journey is important, because we have a very specific reason why we are here and why we are incarnated. I heard a woman that I listened to, Linda Good McGillis, and she said to me, and she said to the group, you are the best of the best. And that is why you are here right now. Because as the best of the best, we've incarnated because of our abilities to be able to change our reality right now. So pat yourself on the shoulders. The work has already been done. We are just waiting for it to catch up. So until then, because of the quantum entanglement, we are doing things that affect the present and the past simultaneously in our now. We are rewriting everything right now. So thank you for being here. Thank you for answering the call. Thank you for coming for such a time as this, because we are the best of the best, and we were called upon to serve the Creator in such a fashion that we are creating a new reality and we are making heavenly earth happen. I'm honored to be here with you guys. Thank you for what you are already doing as my brothers and sisters. We're walking this out together.
Cool stuff.
All right, we've already gone 2 hours, guys. Can you believe it? My behind is sore. I've been sitting for like 5.5 hours, and it's like screaming at me right now going, get up, please. So I know mine is, if you've been joining me since Ken and I started at 10:30 this morning, I know you were going through the same thing.
Amen.
Or some of you, wait a minute, some of you might have closed down and that's, you're actually walking around, so you don't want to be distraction. So I get it. We're the ones that are like having our face and our behinds are yelling, and you guys are all freedom walking around listening. I think you guys might be a little smarter than we are.
I don't know how you guys do it. I was watching since earlier, and I don't know how you guys manage to pull these all day stunts, but I thank you for them.
Oh, you're welcome. Honestly, this is Ken and I, this is our passion. And Sabbath, we see Saturday as Sabbath. We're not judging. It's the place where we turn to build love, so that we are gathering as those who are worthy and deserving, because we built ourselves on the inside to be the resonance frequency of the covenant of love. That's really the explanation of the word Shabbat in a nutshell. And so when we can come together collectively, like with all of you guys in connecting, we are turning towards one another to build love. And that's our passion. And that's why we're here. And that's, for us, that's what Sabbath is about. Yes, we can take it within our own house and do it. And we have done that for many years. But to be able to reach out in like different streams with different people, are you kidding me? I am now, am I going to be exhausted when I get off of here? Yes, my vessel is going to be exhausted. Am I going to need to go pass out? You bet it's going to. Am I need to shut down for 2 days? Probably so. But is it going to be worth it? Every single minute of every moment that I've spent with you. And I will do it.
I find it interesting that your passion, and probably all ours, and why we perhaps are on today and have been connected with you, is because our passion does bring energy within us. And if you were to make a list of things that you love to talk about and you can't shut up. I know sometimes my family will look at me like, oh my gosh, shut her up. But when you're talking about something that is connecting with your heart, your spirit, and your mind, and everything about you begins to resonate, you just can't help it. And I love that. I love that we have a place to do that, and people love you irregardless of the outside. It's just they see, like you said, without the outside skin. And that to me is the most beautiful thing about each and every one of you. Thank you for exposing, and sharing who you are, because wow, that's encouraging to know to me that there are people out there that are right where I'm at, and it's easy to talk about with all of you. Thank you so much. I love you all.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm glad that you were here today.
Yeah,
I
me
love
too.
you guys. Kathleen, thank you for your sharing. Regina, I always love having you in my circle, my friend. Zarin, I love the fact that you were here. Lemoyne, thank you for your comments. I saw all of them. Some of them I was commenting and some I didn't, so I really appreciate it. Brett, I thank you for your questions and what you've presented. I hear you. And Ashley, thank you for your comments as well, because you're bringing that perspective from a younger generation that is connecting and helping to bridge. And so I love everything of our patchwork quilt that we're creating right here for our new tapestry together in creating a new reality. And we are going, and we have been, and we are in this moment now creating heavenly earth. It is manifesting. So thank you for showing up and doing your portion as we do it together. And I look forward to meeting you guys again next week. Maybe we'll get 3 more pages done. And I continue to work on my shadow. I love you guys.
I have a feeling you'll be done before you even know it.
Yeah, who knows? We're all in progress. I'm just going to keep marching on, just like you are. So shalom, shalom. Namaste.
Thanks for the foundational stuff too, again.
You're welcome. Thank you for what you brought today as well, Brett.